Today I'm going to tell two stories from my life of times that I felt very lost, and some of what evolved out of that feeling of lostness. So before I begin, I should mention that I was born with 7 life-threatening heart conditions. So I spent a lot of my childhood going in and out of hospitals and having a lot of different surgeries. It's the way I've lived my life and the way I've gone about when I have found something I'm passionate about is I've gone at it with everything in my heart and I've done my best at that. So I live with my life with a great sense of urgency to make my life and make my time count. In these two stories, you'll hear about being lost and being found. But my heart conditions very much inform that and my drive to make both of it work. The first story starts back in high school. I lived first in Hawaii and then Montana, doing organic gardening and farming. So I worked outside a lot of the day. And at the time, I really thought of myself as a really naturey person. When I looked at what I wanted to do with my time, what I wanted to do with my life, it would be to be outside and to work in the garden. But that would change. That would change over time. About 2 years into high school, I left Montana, moved to Ojai Valley, California. And in Ojai Valley, I remember arriving and feeling rather lost. I just left a place where I had a lot of friends, and a vibrant life where I got to be outside every day and do what I loved. And now I just sit in a classroom all day, which I really didn't like. I struggled a lot with reading and reading comprehension. I grew up with severe dyslexia, and so I always was the person who would avoid reading at all costs. And so when I got to high school, this more traditional environment, it was really difficult for me to settle in. The first few months, in fact, maybe even the first year there, I had a lot of trouble making friends and finding my place, finding who I was going to be. And so that was the start of a period of feeling very lost. Lost on who I was, what I wanted, and what I would do with my time. But then something happened. I started reading a lot. And going from someone who never liked reading, avoided it at all costs, to being someone who loved reading Ray Bradbury and Kurt Vonnegut and Aldous Huxley. In fact, I liked reading and literature so much that I decided that I would write a book. And so I remember over the course of the next year, I lived in this small trailer. And I would come home, and in the mornings I would wake up and I'd go to the kitchen of this small trailer. And under the yellow, dim light of this desk lamp, I'd sit on my computer, writing a book. I wanted to tell the story of my heart conditions, the story of living, the story of trying to find myself. So I ended up writing this book. I wrote it first. The first draft maybe took 6 months. It was about 70,000 words. The next draft needed a lot of structural changes. It took maybe 2 months. It was 60-something thousand words. Then I wrote it a third time, and it still needed a lot of work. But while I did take a break from the book, I continued writing. By the end of high school, about 3 weeks from high school graduation, on the night of my 18th birthday, I published a short book. And thank you. Out of the feeling of lostness, of losing who I thought I was able to find myself in storytelling and writing. And over the course of the next few months, I really began to believe what I would do with my life is to become a high school or college poetry professor or creative writing teacher. I thought that writing was going to be who I was and how I expressed myself. But the next time I was lost, something interesting happened. That all changed. So about a year or a year and a half, maybe 2 years into college, during the summer of either my sophomore or freshman year, I came home to California from New York. I wanted to help my parents by getting a job to help pay for college. And I worked really hard to try to find a job. I applied to 30 or 40 different jobs. I went in person to different fast food restaurants, clothing stores, and even tried day labor, or tried to find day labor, like building houses on Craigslist. But for the life of me, I couldn't figure out how to get a job. I remember one of the jobs I interviewed for was at Pinkberry, and they made me write a song about the ice cream that they serve and sing it to them. Needless to say, I am not a very good songwriter or singer. I did not get the job. But, over the course of the next month or so, I began to feel increasingly bad. I couldn't figure out how to get a job, sort of moping around at home, and I really wanted to help my family pay for my education. Working together, and I did some good work for her, even though I felt I didn't necessarily know what I was doing. And she referred me to a woman in Los Angeles who was a New York Times best-selling ghostwriter for a lot of different celebrities. And so I ended up doing work for her and helping her market her book. And then she referred me to an Amazon Prime pilot TV show, and I worked with their team on marketing the show. And while at the time I had no formal business education at all, and I also really didn't know much about marketing, every time I got off the phone with one of these clients or prospective clients, I'd spend my evenings doing hours and hours of research, trying to figure out the best ways to bring these products to market, to get people to care, to build quality brands that shared the messages of the product and the value simply. So what ended up happening is I went from really knowing nothing about marketing to, over the course of the next 2 or 3 years, I started to run a business. I pitched over 1,200 companies via cold email, just sending emails to different companies' offices offering my services. And of those 1,200 pitches or so, I was able to work with 50 different companies or clients. I was able to work with multinational companies, high-growth funded startups, venture capital firms, celebrities, New York Times bestselling authors, and even the American Heart Association. And so when I look at these 2 times in my life where I felt the most lost, where I'm moving to a brand new place and I don't know anyone, and I struggle with reading, and I struggle with writing, but somehow I find something in storytelling. Or another time where I cannot figure out how to get work, and suddenly I realize that you can do work that you love and get paid for it. The times in my life I felt most lost pushed me, they encouraged me, and they gave me the courage to try radically different new things. And I think being lost is really important because it gives you the opportunity to feel that and to go after things you might otherwise have ignored. Being lost lets you learn things about yourself you may have never known in ways that you could only learn when you are lost. Thank you.